And here in the auditorium, or the boardroom, hearing room, we have Miss Garrison and Miss Davis with us. And maybe next board hearing, we'll have everybody that can be here in person. This time, I believe what I'll do is go ahead and turn the time over to Director John Baza for the briefing session.
Thank you, Chairman Hansen. This is John Baza. I'm the Director of the Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining. I'd like to welcome all the board members, both electronically and in person, to the board meeting here in Salt Lake City for this month's meeting. I think the one thing you'll notice is that in the DNR building and all other state buildings, the governor has lifted a requirement to have a mask. If a person is still feeling like they want to wear a mask, they are certainly welcome to, but he has lifted the requirement that you should wear a mask at all times. So it's kind of nice to see people's faces. I'm down the hall from where you board members are right now in my office. I am connected electronically just for convenience sake, but I can easily run down for anything that comes up that needs to be addressed this morning. First thing on our agenda this morning is to brief you on the Abandoned Mine Reclamation Program and kind of review their 2020 activities. To do that, we have on the line Mr. Steve Fluke, who is the program manager for the Abandoned Mine Reclamation Program. Steve is also in the building in his office this morning. So welcome, Steve, and I'll turn the time over to you.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that. And it's my pleasure to present to the board the Abandoned Mine Reclamation Program accomplishments for 2020, and then some. Let me get my presentation up here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
We can hear you, Steve, and good to see you again.
All right. Yeah, it's good to see everybody's faces for a change. Okay. There we go. And you can see the presentation. I see.
Yes.
Okay, great. Just want to make sure. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, so like I said, this is the 2020 annual review for the Abandoned Mine Reclamation Program. I'll go over some of our projects. But first, I wanted to talk a little bit about our program and what we do, and just kind of give an overview, a brief overview of our work. Our program is here because of Title IV, the Surface Mining Control and Reclamation Act, and that is to manage abandoned mine lands for the state of Utah. And we are funded primarily by the SMACRA AML fund. And we also get funding from the BLM for AML work. And we have a grant with the Department of Energy now to do work for defense-related uranium mines, which they call drums. So we have these three separate funding categories, but our main one and our priority is always the SMACRA work. And we currently have 8 people on our staff. We just lost 2 really good project managers. Chris Rohr, after 38 years, just retired last week or so. And we also lost Kent Phillips to the Forest Service. So we have currently we're advertising for a project manager in the program, and we have 6 project managers, myself, and next week we will have a new secretary that's starting with us. So that's the 8 that are currently on staff. We hope to have 9 in a month or so. So the primary focus of our work is for coal reclamation, and most of the coal reclamation in the state of Utah has been completed. We've almost worked ourselves out of a job in that respect. But we do have work that is continuing. We have a large pipeline project in Carbon County that is unique or new to our program, and really out west. And so that'll be coming up here soon. Right now, we're just in the early engineering stages. And we also have maintenance and abandoned coal mine fire work that crops up here and there. For non-coal reclamation, we can only address the physical safety hazards. We have approximately an estimated 17,000 mine openings in the state of Utah. There isn't a comprehensive inventory of all those, so it's just an estimate. But we have closed, mitigated over 6,000 of those openings, probably close to 7,000. I need to update that number. I haven't looked at it in a couple of years, but we're probably approaching 7,000 by this point. And we prioritize projects based on proximity to population and recreation areas. The reclamation that we conduct through BLM funding can address physical safety hazards and environmental hazards. So that's different than the SMACRA funding. For non-coal mine reclamation, we cannot do environmental hazards just for coal reclamation. The BLM funding is prioritized through the field offices when they have an area that they know that there's a lot of activity or some reason that it rises to their concern level, then we usually start a project based on that. And the BLM has developed a waste dump sampling and risk assessment procedure that we hope to be implementing. We have started and done some of that work in the past, and we hope to continue it moving forward. The uranium mine closure work that we do these days is a little different in that we share a lot of the funding for these projects, because we have funding from OSM, BLM, and DOE. So the BLM and DOE are both stakeholders for uranium mine projects, and they feel that they want to be more involved in addressing these sites. But the funding can be used in different ways between the different grants. So with the OSM funding, all sites can be eligible as long as they meet the SMACRA eligibility standards. But we use that funding predominantly for SITLA and private sites, and BLM funding for just sites managed by BLM or land managed by BLM. And DOE can only use their funding on drum sites on public land, on BLM managed land. So it's nice that we're able to leverage off of each other with these three different grants for uranium mine closures. We also have a maintenance program that we started a couple of years ago with Davy Jones is our project manager for the maintenance work. He also does the drum inventory work. But we've been trying to systematically do maintenance inventory at our old project sites. And we target or shoot for 2 maintenance construction projects each year, one in the spring and one in the fall, which the past couple of years we've been able to do. So I'd like to go over some of our construction projects for 2020. To start with is our coal work. We had 2 coal projects go to construction, the Hiawatha Culvert Repair and the Clear Creek Refuse Project. And those are both in Carbon County. We had 5 non-coal projects that we worked on. They're the red stars there. We had the Spore Mountain Project, which is in Juab County, and the West Dip Bat Cupola in Tooele County, the White Canyon and Deer Flat Project, which is a uranium mining closure project in San Juan County, and the Buckmaster Draw Office of Inspector General Project which is another uranium mining project in Emery County, and the Willard Peak Phase 1 project, which is a mine closure project that was predominantly in Davis County, but it's a big area. And then the 2 maintenance projects that we completed in 2020 were the Jacob City and Temple Mountain projects. And I must say too that COVID did not, surprisingly, did not really slow us down too much. We had one project that was ongoing when COVID hit, and we had to shut work down for about 6 weeks. And when we felt comfortable again, and the contractors came up with some protocols, and we came up with protocols as well for our employees, that everybody felt safe to still go out and work. Since we're working outside, we were able to continue that work. And we really did not let COVID get in the way of our schedules. And we were able to really accomplish quite a bit this past year. So I'd like to talk about a few of the projects. I won't go each one of them, but I'll start with the Hiawatha Culvert Maintenance Project. So this is the project that was managed by Chris Rohr, and it was the second phase of work we have done at Hiawatha. A couple of years ago, if you recall, we closed all of the abandoned mine portals on this on the Hiawatha Mine Complex area. And this is the second phase to address a historic culvert, a stone culvert that was collapsing. And a perennial stream runs through the culvert. It's Miller Creek. So the culvert was built in 1914, and it's about 200 feet long. And there's quite a bit of earth on top of it. So if it were to fail and collapse, it would dam up this perennial stream and then potentially cause some catastrophic flooding if that were to be released. So we felt it was a really important and good project to help repair this culvert and restore its function so that it would not collapse. Here's some of the work that we did. We also wanted to maintain the historic nature of the culvert because it's a pretty interesting structure. It was built in 1914. It's composed of these sandstone blocks, and the work is really spectacular to see, actually. So we had the contractors, the engineering design was to redo the concrete floor. So they broke it out and put in a new concrete floor in the culvert, shored up the sidewalls, and built new sidewalls out of concrete. So there's the completed work there on the bottom right. And from the outside, you can see that's the entrance to the intake of the stream flow. And the other side, the bottom right, is the riprap structure that we constructed at the outflow. The Clear Creek Refuse Project was also managed by Chris Rohr. I think he had to finish up his projects before he finally retired. So this was a coal refuse project that was along Mud Creek in Carbon County. It's near the town of Clear Creek and adjacent to the abandoned Clear Creek coal mine. And the work consisted of removal of coal refuse and reconstruction of a section of stream channel. There's a couple of photos of the stream channel running underneath that is washed out underneath this track. We left the track in place, but the final work was removal of 6,675 cubic yards of coal refuse and importing 1,640 yards of clean fill and topsoil, and we rebuilt 450 feet of stream channel. The Spore Mountain Project is a unique project in Juab County. It was managed by Seth Button, and it's a fluorspar mining district. And the nature of the mining in this district left some unique problems. Typically, they would drift into a mountain to mine the fluorspar, and the fluorspar was often in the shape of big pipes. And then they would stope out the fluorspar from below, allowing gravity to help them, and then take it out the adit that they drove into the mountain. And so then that left behind a lot of really big pits, because these fluorspar pipes could be quite large. And so it left behind really large pits that were difficult to address. There wasn't really a feasible way to actually close these sites. So a lot of them, we ended up putting up barricades and things just to warn people that these big drop-offs were there, because they would, you couldn't necessarily see them if you were hiking downhill. They could be unexpected. There were also, here's some traditional adits that were as part of this program. Back gate closure on the left, and on the right is a block wall closure. So these may have been adits that were driven into the mountain, and they might encounter one of those big pits, but sometimes it was just a kind of a traditional adit that didn't connect to a pit. Here's a couple of big pits and trenches that we're constructing, and the contractors are constructing pin grates on. So it's pretty rugged terrain. I'm not sure how they got those I-beams up there, but those guys are pretty clever and really good workers. Here's a completed pin grate on the left with I-beams. So that's quite a large shaft. And you can see in the back. Yes.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
Why don't you just fill up the holes with dirt? You know, get a big earth mover in there and put dirt in them.
It would be too much dirt. The cost for bringing in that much dirt would be astronomical. And we looked into blasting the sides and kind of bringing the high walls down. But even that, there's some of them, many of them are 100-foot diameter and maybe 80, 100 feet deep. So that would be blasting out just an entire amount. The amount of disturbance would be pretty great, and it would just leave huge rubble piles behind as well. And so we went back and forth with the BLM. We coordinated with them on how the best way to approach these would be, and we did decide in the end just putting these barriers up was they were comfortable with that, and it warns people they can't accidentally drive into the one of the pits or shafts is the idea. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you, Steve.
You're welcome. And you can see back here's one of the barricades. This lower picture is one of the pits. You can see the barricade kind of wrapping all the way around. So some of them were quite big. Another project that we completed in San Juan County is the White Canyon and Deer Flat project. This is the second phase of a work that we've done out in the same area. We completed the Red Canyon, Red and Fry Canyon project. So these are 4 mining districts, Red, Fry, and White Canyons, and the Deer Flat mining districts that are uranium mining districts in San Juan County. So this year we did the second phase, the White Canyon and Deer Flat portion. Susan White has been the project manager of these uranium, of all 4 of these projects. It's all on BLM managed lands, and there are a lot of drum sites too. So here we also used, actually we just used BLM and OSM funding for this. DOE did not have their NEPA clearance together at this time. But we closed 63 adits and 29 vent holes for this project. And here's some traditional, we backfilled quite a few. There's a photo of a backfill and a pinned grate. A native stone wall closure and a block wall closure. And these are some of our back compatible grate closures. So they're not gates made for access, but they're rebar grates that we left 24-inch flyways for the bats. And I'd like to talk a little bit about our work with the National Association of Abandoned Mine Lands Programs. We have 2 delegates within NAMLP. And NAMLP is an organization that has, I think, approximately 33 states and tribes that have abandoned mine programs. And we get together to discuss legislative issues. And also we have a yearly conference to talk about, to share ideas and work that we've done and to learn from each other this way. We host the NAMLIP website. Stacy Shiflett is the webmaster for the NAMLIP website. And this past year in 2020, we received the Hard Rock Reclamation Award for physical safety hazards for the Red and Fry Canyon uranium mine closure project. So it was a virtual conference this past year, so no pictures of receiving the the award, but there's a picture of it. So Susan White did a great job on that project, and Chris Rohr wrote up the nomination for the award. And in 2022, we will be co-hosting the annual conference, and that's going to be held in Grand Junction, Colorado. The Colorado AML program will be doing most of the work, but we'll be providing at least a tour, a field trip tour, and we may provide staff for the actual conference if Colorado needs it. And I'd like to talk also about a few legislative issues that we've been working with NAMLIP. The AML fee collection ends in September 30th of 2021. So we've been working for, I think, 6 years on the reauthorization of the fee collection. It doesn't mean that the programs will end. It just means that because there is still funding in the AML trust fund, but we want the AML fees collection to continue, and we have been working pretty hard to get out the message and to educate and to support bills that might be put forward for this reauthorization. Right now, there are 2 competing bills in the House for reauthorization. There's one in the Senate. So we think that it's going to happen this year. In 2006, when it was last reauthorized, I think it happened at the 11th hour behind closed doors. There was a deal struck. So that may be the same thing. Even though we work on it for 6 years, we're still down to the wire here again. The Reclaim Act is another kind of an important act that's been proposed for a few years now. It's the revitalizing the economy of coal communities by leveraging local activities and investing more act. So good thing it has a good abbreviation for it. This act is to take AML funds to use toward projects that promote economic recovery for communities affected by the downturn of coal production. We don't know exactly how it's going to end up looking, but it could conceivably bring $5 million a year for several years to our program for projects that support economic recovery, as long as they are tied to some AML work. So we don't know exactly how that's going to look if it were to pass, but it could be a big game changer for our program. And it's a little different work than we've done. Most of our work does do some some economic recovery by just the nature of it, because we are doing work, we are providing construction work for contractors, and sometimes they're local contractors. Usually they're the contractors, at least in the state of Utah, if they're not local to the communities. And so our funding often goes toward economic recovery as it is. But this would be really driving the economic recovery side ahead of the AML work, possibly. But NAMLIP also takes a neutral issue on this because it affects different programs in different ways. And it is taking money that has been set aside in the AML fund and using it in a different way than what it was set aside for. So that's one of the downsides of the Reclaim Act. And finally, I'd like to talk a little bit about our community outreach. It's an important part of our program. This year, in 2020, we distributed 22,338 workbooks, the Utah's Heritage Workbook, to 4th graders to use in their curriculum. And we did not do any community outreach events because of COVID. So that was a shame. We like to go and set up booths in places and educate folks and get our message out there to stay out, stay alive, and let people know the kind of work that we're doing. And we also have our yearly calendar distribution though. And next year we're working on their latest calendar. And that's all that I have prepared. Are there any questions?
Board members, any questions for Steve? Seeing none.
I have one.
Go ahead.
So can you take a inner tube through that culvert?
Well,
No,
it
I'm
is
not
quite-
kidding. I'm not kidding. They do it through irrigation canals in Hawaii. Turn it into
well,
a tourist attraction.
maybe in the spring it would be high enough. It is on private property. I did not mention that, but it's within the Hiawatha mine area. It's actually permitted for an active coal mine.
It looks very
So-
much like some of the irrigation canals that go under mountains in Hawaii.
Okay. Well, maybe it could be an economic recovery project. I mean, those are the kind of projects that the Reclaim Act is trying to promote. Really, they've been doing some trial work in states like West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Kentucky, Ohio, and Alabama. And they've had a similar program, a pilot program they've been doing for several years where they've been pushing these economic recovery projects. And some of them will be to close a shaft. And then when they're done closing the shaft, they will build an orchard on that land or else a business park. The money can be used for quite a wide variety of things. We don't know, that pilot program has different standards and rules than what Reclaim is going to have. So that's what we don't really know, how it's going to look and what the standards will be and how applicable it will be in our state. But an inner tube park would be something that could be that could be set up through that program.
Kind of a wild ride.
Yeah.
Steve, I have a quick question about the pipeline that is an upcoming project for you in Carbon County.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes. So East Carbon sent a letter to DOGM a few years ago. And I guess it was a complaint letter saying that historic mining has impacted Grassy Trail Creek in Whitmore Canyon. So that runs from the Grassy Trail Reservoir 6 miles to the town of East Carbon. And their claim was that the stream has been undermined and the water from the stream, surface water, is lost, and spring water to underground water is lost to the mine. And we looked at that and we realized that we could actually do something about this, that it was eligible for our work. We've never done a project like this before, but they are done back east. One of the reasons that we don't do them in the west is because SMACRA really looks at water quality issues. They don't really look at water quantity. So the loss of water isn't something that we can address. But once it's lost into the mine, the water does not meet water quality standards for agricultural, industrial, or culinary use. So because of that, we're able to demonstrate that it is a loss to them and it is eligible for our work. So we're still in the engineering phase. We have a 30% design and Sunrise Engineering who's doing the work for us. And we're looking at constructing a 6-mile pipeline and a diversion structure below the dam to collect water that overflows and is wasted from the dam in the springtime that would go down the stream channel is lost, and also water from some springs that are at the bottom of the dam. And it will benefit the town of East Carbon and the Sunnyside Cogen plant. They both are the water right users or the senior water right users for that canyon. So we've been coordinating with both Sunnyside and East Carbon. We have to look at water rights issues, and it's a pretty big project. And we are looking at it, it potentially could be about a $4 million construction project is our estimate right now. And we're also trying to get some grant money to help offset the costs that we have for SMACRA.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, we're looking forward to that project. I think it could be really exciting and it really help to ease carbon. And I think it's a great use of SMACRA funds.
Board members, any other questions for Mr. Flute? Seeing none, turn the time back over to, well, Steve or to Director Baza.
I just wanted to, this is John Baza. I just wanted to say thank you to Steve for an excellent presentation. And I should have said from the get-go that this is something that the board doesn't see all the time. It's a non-regulatory activity of the division, but it's very important. And as you can see, it does some good work for the people of Utah. So we're glad to have that program under our heading, and we're glad that Steve is leading up such good work in the state. So thank you, Steve.
Yeah, I appreciate your time. Thanks.
The second item on our briefing agenda is to cover some rules that are up for 5-year review. And Levon, since you're so new on the board, Ms. Garrison, you probably haven't seen this happen before, but there's a requirement for all of our rules that they would sunset after 5 years unless we take action to renew them. So we go through this cycle for all of our rules, but the one up right now, the series of rules, is a set of rules that Natasha will explain. She's provided a memo to the board, and hopefully you've all seen that, dated May 4th. But I'm going to turn the time over to Natasha Baloff. She's our legislative liaison and policy coordinator for the division, and she'll explain a little bit more about the memo and the rules that are up for review.
All right. Hi, good morning. I'm Natasha Baloff. As Director Baza said, I'm the legislative and policy coordinator for the division. And yeah, every 5 years, all of our rules, and they're staggered every 5 years. They're up for review, and we have to determine if they're still applicable. I'm so sorry. The division has had a few that are up for review this year, and I'm sorry. Let me pause for just a moment.
Just so you know, Natasha has a live bird living with her. So that's what you're hearing in the background. During the pandemic, we've come to term our pets as coworkers.
Yeah, sorry. My macaw is usually like really good, and he just sits in my office, doesn't make a peep all day. But of course, during the board meeting, this is when he decides that he needs to scream. Anyway, so getting back to the memo, I filed a memo with the board, and it includes all of the rules that are up for the coal and the abandoned mines program. And so really we need the board's approval to renew them. They are required because of the Federal Surface Mining Control and Reclamation Act. That does require us to have them in place to administer our programs. And the division encourages it. We've also sent out a memo to appropriate stakeholders asking for comments, and we didn't receive any in return. Yeah, I think that covers it. So if there's any questions, I can take any. If not, today I'm just looking for approval from the board to renew the rules.
And in practice, what we try to do is get the rules back in place and renew them. And then if there are any comments for specific concerns or changes that stakeholders or public would like to see, we would address those as separate items for rule analysis and revision. But at this time, the recommendation is to just reinstate the rules as they are so that we can maintain them in place. So we wouldn't normally require any kind of vote on the board, but if you would consent to us going ahead and submitting an action with the Division of Administrative Rules to reinstate those rules and renew them for an additional 5 years, that's the direction we will go.
Just to review, you don't need a motion.
Board members, do you have any objection to approving the request by the division for the renewal of the rules? And if not, then I can act as chairman of this board and grant that renewal. I see thumbs up and no objection, so I guess as chairman, I can say that the board agrees to the renewal of the rules. Does that satisfy your need, Mr. Baza?
Yes, Natasha can go ahead and make that filing based on this decision.
Great. We'll look forward to that filing.
Okay, thank you. We don't have any other items listed on the agenda, but let me bring up a couple of things under other items. Julianne has indicated to me that there have been no new filings for the June board meeting. With that in mind, unless there are carryover actions or things that are necessary that the board would need to conduct business in June, our recommendation to the board would be is they cancel the June meeting. And that may come as a shock, that may come as an opportunity to board members, but that would mean our next regularly scheduled board meeting would come up in July. But along those same lines, if the board does desire to cancel the June meeting, when we last met, we decided on the Environmental Excellence Awards. And so Ms. Holly Brown is indicating that the board seemed to want to desire to present those awards in person. We would likely be back to in-person meetings, either at the July or August meeting of the board. Kind of depends on our electronic capabilities. But if it's the case that we can present in person, would the board still want that? Or since there's been some time lag in between, we can go ahead and mail those awards out as we did last year during our virtual meetings. It's really at the board's pleasure what you'd like to do about the Environmental Excellence Awards, but those are the two things that you probably need to decide on today is, do you want to cancel the June board meeting? And if so, do you want to just have Holly mail out those Environmental Excellence Awards?
Well, I think let's discuss the Environmental Excellence Awards first. Personally, my preference is that we do that in person. They're important awards, and I think that giving them out in person and having some discussion about them doesn't diminish their importance, as I think mailing them out would. I don't know if there's any disagreement among the board members that we do it in person. I think that unless board members have a different opinion, I think we would like to do that in person, whether it be in July or August. Let's hope for July. Okay. As to the board hearing being canceled in June, what do we do if there's an emergency request for a board hearing, and we've canceled the hearing at this point? Is there an avenue to, if we cancel the meeting, is there some pathway that an emergency hearing could be held in June if need be?
Well, there might be a couple of options on that, Mr. Chairman. we could convene very quickly an electronic meeting of the board, if necessary, to deal with that kind of emergency. Or the board could also designate a hearing examiner who would report at the next regularly scheduled board meeting. Probably either path is available to us at this point.
Okay. Board members, do you have any issue with, as Director Boz has asked, that we cancel the June hearing?
No objection.
Mr. Brown, any objection to that?
No, Mr. Chairman, I don't think we should meet if we don't have a need to meet.
I'm with you there. Mr. Borden,
No objections on my part.
Mr. Church?
No objections.
Well, it sounds like among the board members who are present, there's no objection to canceling the June hearing unless there's some compelling reason that comes forward that we need to have that meeting.
Very well, Mr. Chairman. We'll proceed along those lines and indicate that on the board's website. And along the lines of what Mr. Brown said, I had an old ecclesiastical leader who had said that it's got to be a very good meeting to be better than no meeting at all. So
Absolutely.
I appreciate that. The only other thing I wanted to bring up is we are going to continue to have our next oil and gas collaborative meeting in the Uinta Basin on July 8th. You might want to put that on your calendars if you're available. We are planning to do that in person at the Duchesne Event Center as we used to do. So we'll make sure that the board members get notice of that way ahead of time. We're working up an agenda right now, but July 8th, which is a Thursday, if you're available, please join us for that meeting. We'll probably still have some kind of electronic connectivity in case people want to listen in at that point. But we're hopeful we can start up our meetings in person in the near future. With that, Mr. Chairman, I think that's all the division has for briefing. I know that you have an item for opportunity for public comment, so I will turn the time back over to you.
Thank you. And before I read this, I failed to express our gratitude to Steve and the Abandoned Mine Reclamation Program for the good work they do each year, and look forward to next year's report. The public has provided an opportunity and a link to a public comment page for the board May meeting agenda. The link was made available to the public on May 18th, 2021, when the agenda was emailed to stakeholders and posted on the board's website. Comments were accepted until 11:59 p.m. on Tuesday, May 26, 2021, and no comments were submitted. So I guess with that, we will finish up this portion of the hearing today, the briefing session, and plan to come back in about 15 minutes at 10 o'clock to begin the hearing portion. So until that time, we'll go off the record and off the air.